I am Josh Schulman, representing the City of St. Petersburg. I will introduce our other members here. We have Vince Cox from Pinellas County, Commissioner David Albritton from Clearwater, Commissioner Renee Flowers from Pinellas County, Commissioner Keith Sabile from Pinellas Park, and Commissioner Michael Ferdovich from Gulfport. Let's see, it doesn't appear that we have anybody in the lobby for public comment. Clarissa, can you confirm that? Oh, there it goes.
We have no public comments.
Fantastic, thank you. So we will start off with our first action item, which is the approval of the March 24th minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. Motion passed unanimously, and we move right on to our second item, which is waterborne transportation, and Cassandra is going to enlighten us there. Cassandra, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I was all ready to talk and I was on mute. So starting off great. This is a very exciting action item for you today. I'm requesting that you recommend an approval of a task work order to further define our phase 1 of an integrated ferry system. This would be the concept design that we would take into a grant proposal with a cost not to exceed of $135,000. That is a combined cost of several task work orders. Next slide, please. I'd like to update you a little bit about the waterborne transportation process that we've been going through. Councilman Albritton has already seen much of the presentation I'm going to give you today because we've been coordinating with the MPO, the Forward Pinellas Board, and their waterborne transportation subcommittee that is looking at a county-wide system plan for ferry service as it is integrated into our public transportation system. So we are looking as PSTA to participate in the development of a waterborne system by helping to get federal and state grants to help support the service. In our phase 1 work, we are looking at a Federal Transit Administration grant through the Passenger Ferry Program. And this is a program that we have never been eligible for before. And so it is new money to the region and to the county. This would support infrastructure investment at docks. We're primarily looking at 5 locations within Pinellas County, several within the city of Clearwater, and 1 within the city of Dunedin. Generally, we're looking at a prototype dock design. We've been working with our general services consultant, AECOM, on getting some high-level cost estimates for these dock designs as a prototype for moving forward with the grant. Secondly, we're looking at new vessel acquisition. So with the current level of service that is being provided by a private operator in Clearwater, their vessels that they have are not really meant to be used for the high capacity commercial grade service that they're providing. And so we are looking at acquiring new vessels through a grant program, whether it is the passenger ferry program or some other programs that are available through the Maritime Administration, which is separate from the Federal Transit Administration. But generally, we're looking for environmentally friendly propulsion systems. So again, the hybrid or hybrid electric realm versus the diesel. And we're getting into what's considered naval architecture. So I'm learning more about vessels versus bus vehicles and understanding that they're less off the shelf than our general bus vehicles. And so there's quite a bit of work to understand what our use case is and then what we'd like to have included in terms of characteristics of those vessels. And lastly, but certainly most importantly, is the support for service. So we are working with the cities and with the private operator on several service plans and would be pursuing Florida Department of Transportation Service Development grants in the future. Next slide, please. So to give you just a peek into what we've been doing in terms of the docks. Again, we have been working with AECom on this work and looking at docks to be included in the Clearwater Marina design. The City of Clearwater released yesterday a design build procurement for the design and construction of a new marina. So they would be rebuilding their existing marina. And so what we've been working with them is reserving space for future ferry service that would match in with what their design would be, but also allow us to have 2 vessels docked there, including overnight. So the preliminary cost for those docks is about $750,000 to $1 million each. And we're using this as a prototype to expand to other areas within Clearwater and the Dunedin Marina. We have executed a $50,000 work order to AECom, which is in the purview of the CEO. And so this was a regular course of business where we use our federal funds that are set aside for planning and engineering on that. And so that work order did come up with these results. Next slide, please. So our next steps with the dock design is to refine this preliminary concept, solidify that cost estimate, and prepare the application to the grant program, but also ensure that we are having a local match. And so we've been working with Forward Pinellas, the cities, and we'll be working with the county as well to look at what the opportunities are for a local match for that grant opportunity. Next slide, please. Next is the vessel acquisition concept. We did want to take a look at vessels that were consistent across the entire fleet. The fleet that they're using right now is not consistent, meaning it has different passenger capacities, as well as different maintenance needs. We also wanted to make sure that if we're going to be purchasing vessels, that we look at something that is environmentally sustainable, but still meets the speed requirements at a fully loaded capacity. We also have issues with height restrictions on the bridges, and anything that is purchased for the service in Clearwater and Dunedin, we want to make sure it is transferable or expandable to the South Intercoastal, so that we are making sure that we can have interoperability of all of these vessels across an entire system. And then lastly, one of the things that we could consider is propulsion upgradability. And you mentioned this at your last meeting in the Finance Committee, talking about how you would convert diesel trolleys to electric trolleys. And that's exactly what we're trying to give ourselves the opportunity, because the vessels, when we acquire vessels, they have a much longer lifespan than our bus vehicles. So these vessels that we would be purchasing would have a useful life of 25 or more years. And so we want to make sure that we're prepared for the future as we start to acquire new vessels into our fleets. Next slide, please. Preliminarily, we have estimated the cost of these vessels at $4 to $5 million, and that's quite a large span. And so looking at the details of what the characteristics of the vessels may be is really the next step and the subject of this action item today. So we've taken a high-level look at what it would be to construct new vessels, and you see the naval architect that we are working with has already come up with a fun little concept design for us, just in the early stages of looking at our vehicles, but we look to refine these as well. So right now it's just a fun PSTA vessel out on the water, but I'm sure that the real deal will look a little bit different. Next slide, please. So the subject of a new task work order would be to complete the concept design for the vessels, take a deeper dive on the vessel's features and specifications, looking at service plans, and evaluate some additional propulsion options. So even in the hybrid spectrum, there are a lot of variations. And so we need a little bit more detail about the commercial grade options that we have, and what is the useful life of different engines, as well as what might be those different propulsion systems, and then start to look at what are the benefits. And this would really help us with the grant opportunity, is to identify what the environmental benefits in terms of emissions may be with different hybrid electric options, and what might the savings on maintenance be of having a consistent fleet and then also that hybrid electric. So we do have some early cost estimates on the infrastructure and operating scenarios, but really taking a deeper dive on that vessel and what we would be asking for from this grant opportunity. Next slide, please. So the next steps for vessel acquisition would be to recommend this action item today, which is to fund and conduct a concept design phase for the ferry service. This would refine our preliminary concept that you saw and really solidify that cost estimate. And again, just as we are working on the docks, is preparing for those grant opportunities, whether that's through the FTA, the Maritime Administration, or we have found some other grant opportunities through FHWA and the Department of Environmental Protection. Next slide, please. So the request today is to recommend to the PSTA board to approve a task work orders to AECOM to further define this phase 1 concept design. This is at a combined cost not to exceed $135,000. This does include $50,000 that we have already issued in the task work order to AECOM, but this would be the additional work to complete the detail that we need in order to apply for the grant. And with that, I'll turn it over to the chair.
Thank you, Cassandra. I appreciate that. I did want to mention, I didn't mention it earlier, that Commissioner Deborah Figg-Sanders from St. Petersburg has joined us. I now see her on the screen, which makes it easier to identify her. Hi there. You were not on our screen earlier, so wanted to make sure that we knew she was here. Any questions for Cassandra? Okay, Commissioner Flowers, if you could push your button there in front.
Oh,
Never mind. And there we go. You're good.
okay, I'm good.
Yes.
So I think this is a really wonderful concept. When we look at the success of the ferry, even from St. Petersburg over to Tampa, and just how it allows for that additional mobility for people to get back and forth. So this is what we're being asked to provide support for is only for the design and planning phase. And then everything else will hinge on our ability to marry funds with the grant opportunities or the potential grant opportunities that are coming forward.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so maybe I missed it, I apologize. It will be docked in Clearwater and Dunedin area, correct?
Phase 1.
Phase 1?
Phase
Okay.
1 will be, in Clearwater and Dunedin.
Okay, and so there would be connectors, if you will, to other docking places to pick up to kind of have a little pathway, if you will, moving from Dunedin to Clearwater, and it would transport you to downtown St. Pete, maybe going over to Tampa, I don't know, but, so is that?
Yes, ma'am. So
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
the long-term plan is to have connections all the way down the intracoastal around the point into downtown St. Pete in order to connect with the Cross Bay Ferry. I think this is a long-term plan, and supporting the service in Dunedin and Clearwater is really the starting point because it's already had a proof in concept from the Clearwater Ferry operator. And so we'd like to build on that success and then take it down the intracoastal
Okay.
step by step.
Thank you, I think this is a good project.
Am I good?
There you go. Commissioner Cox.
Thank you, Chair Shulman. Hi, Cassandra, and my question would be, so our intent is to own the boats, have our own employees, operate them, our maintenance, would that be contracted, or have we looked that far yet? I'm just curious of what our long-term plan is. And,
The plan would be to have a private operator. PSTA at this time does not have the technical capacity to manage ferry services on a day-to-day basis. We do have the technical capacity to manage the grants and to understand the needs of a private operator, as you discussed at the Finance Committee with the Jolly Trolley. And so we think this is a great opportunity for us to have a public-private partnership, and have that private operator continue to operate the service while we are able to bring new dollars into the county.
okay, I understand. So then again, we would, not unlike the trolley service, we would own the vehicles and we would maintain, well, the boats, I should say. And we would maintain those and then they would do the actual operation of that. And I guess it wouldn't be a nonprofit like, like Jolly Trolley is that correct?
Well, we do have several different types of private operators that we work with, including our new paratransit services. And so to us, it's more about the ability of the operator to provide the service, and not whether they're profit or not-for-profit. However, in this case, we would own the vessels because we would be taking in those federal dollars. We would be responsible for those vessels. We would be responsible for those docks. We would contract with the private operator to provide regular operations and maintenance. And then for large-scale maintenance, we would, again, be available to apply for additional grants that are not able to be accessed by the current operator.
Okay, that's all, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Albritton, I know you had a comment.
Yeah, Cassandra, just wondering, when will PSDA be ready to apply for the grant?
So we will be applying for the FTA passenger grant program, passenger ferry grant program in this cycle. There are other grants that will be available later this year or next year that we will continue to apply for. But we're ready to apply for something as early as June and July.
Okay, good. Are you expecting to get some letters of support for this as well?
Yes, sir.
From the community, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. We have a very long list of letters that we will be requesting, and we'll be requesting some very specific information, especially from businesses out at Clearwater Beach, understanding their employees' needs, and making sure that we have some significant equity considerations as we start to plan this service.
Commissioner Ferdovich?
I believe the Tampa, St. Pete, boat between the two runs almost seasonal. Would this run all the time, except for obviously if, water conditions permitting? So would this be a 12 months out of the year thing, unlike the Tampa, St. Pete thing?
Yes, this is a plan to run year-round service. We do have several different operating plans, but all include 12-month service, as well as additional service to be added on during spring break.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, and I just want to make sure, Commissioner Fig Sanders, you're a small little box on the bigger box, so I want to make sure if you had any questions that you had an opportunity.
Thank you for that, Chair. No, I have no questions at this time.
All right, thank you. Cassandra, I did have just one question. You mentioned that we're applying for this grant in this cycle. Assuming it gets approved, how long does it take would we expect to get a report back on these items?
It varies, depends on the administration, but we generally find out anywhere between 3 to 6 months whether we've received that grant or not. But as I mentioned, there are several grants that are available to us in other agencies that we're not used to applying in, and we'll be watching those as well. And so the cycles may be a little bit different, but right now we're considering this grant season right now, and so most of them are coming out right now. A lot of grants are due in mid-July, and then we'll usually find out somewhere in September, October timeframe.
And assuming the grant is approved, how long would we expect AECOM to have a report back to us on the items that we're asking them to investigate?
So we've given the naval architect, which is a sub to AECOM, about 5 weeks to do their work in order to be ready for this grant cycle. This particular grant, we've been told that it will come out in late May, and so its chances are it's going to be due in August, and so I think we'll have plenty of time to have their work completed.
Okay.
Again, this is a very high level look at this work, and we would get into a deeper design phase if we were successful with the grants.
Understood. Thank you. Commissioner Ferdovich?
How do these boats differ from a hydrofoil?
So these are hybrid electric boats. We did talk to the operator and to the naval architect about hydrofoils as a separate conversation we had with Commissioner Schulman. Hydrofoils as a vessel type are not appropriate for the intracoastal because of their wake and their potential speeds. So, but we will be looking at different hybrid electric options. And so I have asked the consultant to bring different propulsion types and a nice comparison matrix so you all could look at that.
I'll tell you, these are a great idea. I mean, if you go from BVI to St. Thomas, that's the way you go. You take the boat over. It takes you about 45 minutes through the water to get over there and back again. So it's a great concept to do.
All right. Seeing no additional questions, I will entertain a motion.
I move approval as recommended.
All right. We have a motion and a second from Commissioner Ferdovich. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. All right. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And Cassandra, don't go anywhere because you are next up. Yes.
Yes. So this is an information item.
Cassandra,
Julia.
Can you hold on 1 second?
Yes, absolutely.
Did,
The public comment at the beginning of the meeting
we
covered.
addressed all agenda items.
Oh, when the item's not on the agenda? Okay.
Sorry, brief operational issue here. Cassandra, you are now free to move about the cabin.
Thank you. Julie, there's no PowerPoint for this. It's only an information item. So if you can take down the screen, thank you. So as you know, we do look at our services at least 3 times a year. And we make service changes according to our union contract in February, June, and October. Because of COVID, we have been doing that a little bit more frequently, watching the CDC guidelines, making service reductions, rear door boarding, fareless systems, increasing the sanitation, and also reducing the maximum passenger loads allowed per vehicle. You may also recall that in February, we layered on to some of our higher ridership routes some additional COVID relief service that allowed us to keep the reduced maximum passenger loads, meaning we could only have 15 people per vehicle, but we were passing people by and we wanted to rectify that. And so we have had some success in improving the rider experience on those 3 routes. And that was all within our existing budget. As we start to watch information about vaccinations, looking at future CDC guidelines, as well as the availability of our new Flamingo fares, we think that the economic activity that we're seeing on the street is warranting us to return to normal service. And so we have been looking at what does a return to normal service mean. And in our June service change, we do plan to return to full passenger load availability. So pre-COVID frequencies as well. And the service span, there are some routes that were operating till midnight. And now, since the beginning of the pandemic, we've been stopping service at 10 p.m. So those routes that do go beyond 10 on a regular basis would then return to that beyond 10 o'clock service, such as the cat trolley and the Suncoast Beach trolley as examples. We would still require masks, as required by the administration, the federal administration. And we would still postpone fare collection for at least 1 month. And so the plan is to return to normal service in June and return to fares with the launch of a contactless system, Flamingo Fares, in July. We would like to bring to you in May a discussion of Flamingo Fares and some adjustments that we would like to make to the fare policy as we launch Flamingo Fares, but then also show you some research that we've been doing on some new equity considerations and some research that we've been doing on national best practices in looking at how we make reduced fares available to more people who need them. And so this is an information item only, we will be returning to normal-ish service starting in June.
Cassandra, thank you. Are there any questions for Cassandra? All right. I just had one comment along those lines, and I appreciate the need to have a time frame, because there's a lot of things that have to be set into motion, and so having a time schedule to do that makes sense. I just want to make sure, and you mentioned it in your presentation, that we are paying attention to the actual transmission rates and positivity rates for COVID in the community, variants and things like that, so that we, while having a target date based on what we expect and what we're seeing and the trend that things are going, that we have the ability to be flexible, if things should change from that trajectory. So, thank you for that.
Yes.
Is there any other business for the committee from any of the members? All right, Mr. Miller, anything?
On behalf of Commissioner Albritton, the grant application for our Clearwater Transit Center is now, the feds have opened that up. So we're very focused on getting an awesome grant application in, and a lot of letters of support from that. So you'll be hearing more lobbying on my behalf to seek your assistance in the coming weeks. So,
All right.
very good on that.
Thank you very much. I know this, your mic is on. Is there?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. Just want to make sure there wasn't another comment. And I don't see any motioning by Commissioner Fig Sanders. So on a comment. So with that, we will go ahead and adjourn our meeting, and look forward to seeing everyone next week at the board meeting.
Excellent meeting. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I can't wait for the that's gonna be so cool.
Well, like anything, it's the start of bigger things is always fun.
Back to work.
Back to
At
mowing.
some point, you get to go. I was there way back when.
Yeah.
No, it's this afternoon. Late this afternoon.